right, Jenny, you let me know if this works. Thank you, Ken. It was wonderful. I'm personally disappointed not to see Gretchen here today. She always chuckles when I put math and science in my sermon, and this one has none. I was hoping to surprise her. I am also delighted that you're allowing me not to wear my mask. I've discovered in teaching with a mask, I have to be very careful about my humor, which tends to be very understated, and if the students can't see my mouth, they sometimes don't know if I'm joking or not. So, and because this sermon is just an absolute hilarious riot. So Ken made some changes in the music. I made some changes in the sermon, and so I apologize for not delivering the sermon I had originally promised. You can see the title of it on the front of your order of service if you wish. Inside the order of service is the correct one. It seems that I don't have the discipline or ability to commit to a sermon very far in advance. While I still think that I might someday deliver a sermon on the little things, it turned out maybe that it was more personally important and maybe not generally so. I also apologize for not being able to provide you a sermon on the situation in the Ukraine. I was telling Nedjla the other day how impressed I am that our ministers have always seemed to be able to create sermons from topical events in days sometimes. I'm delighted. So those of you who don't know, I was on the search committee that recommended Alan, and I'm delighted to see that we did a good job. Much to my delight, I got an email on Friday from Alan saying, Jacob, I think we should say something about the Ukraine. And I thought, Alan, that's amazing. Yes, please, because I can't do it. I'm not that good. And so, Alan, I'm sincerely grateful for you to have created that space in which we can discuss the war, but also, as related to this sermon, thankful for creating a door into which we can all walk through into this sermon. So the idea of preaching about walls and doors came to me sitting in Temple Bethel in Durham, North Carolina on a recent visit to my brother. The rabbi told us about the Jewish injunction to have at least 2 sets of doors between the outside and the sanctuary so that the congregation would be spiritually prepared for worship by the act of walking through those doors. The first reaction to this was, wow, that's pretty cool. Those old prophets and rabbis really knew how to get the followers ready for a sermon. I am delighted to note also that we are in the sanctuary today, how fortuitous, as you walk through 2 sets of doors to get here. Are you ready for a sermon? Walls serve to protect us. They sit between us and other people, wild animals, the environment. Made of stone, brick, wire, or wood, they protect us from harm. We can all remember times that we're glad to have walls around us, either to keep the polar vortex at bay or to prevent that loud, angry dog from attacking us as we walked past its yard. On a different scale, history is replete with famous walls. To name a few, the Great Wall of China, built to protect Imperial China from the nomads of the Eurasian steppe. The Berlin Wall, built to protect the communists from the decadent West. The wall without a name that was to be built on our southern border to protect us from Mexican immigrants. However, walls also separate us. As much as the walls of my house keep the polar vortex at bay, they also separate me from the beauty and majesty of the natural world. Just the same, they can separate us from the rest of humanity. It seems that barbarians play a vital role in the development of civilization by providing infusions of new ideas and DNA, and that building a wall between you and the barbarians makes for a fragile, staid imperium. Building a wall between the communists and the decadent West seems to be a recipe for glasnost. See how that goes. Sometimes the walls are less obvious and go by such names as social distancing and mask mandates. Built to protect us from a deadly pandemic, These walls nonetheless separate us. Ken gently questioned me about my choice of hymns for today, two of which include singing. He asked, "You do know that we will be humming, right?" For me, one of the great separations of this pandemic and the walls we built to protect us has been from people who would otherwise gather together to create beautiful vocal music. And so as you'll see in our, I now don't remember which hymn is which, but how can I stop from singing? Well, people are smart. And not long after we started building walls, we realized that we could actually put holes in those walls, call them doors, and that would help mitigate the separating effects of the walls while we hope preserving the protecting element of the walls. We can protect as we wish, mingle as we wish. We get literally the best of both worlds. The protected world inside our walls and the connected world outside. And we can be very clever with our doors and our walls. Windows are doors in a wall to let in sun. If we wish to bring in the air, we make a door in the door and raise the glass. If we wish to not bring in the bugs, we put up a screen. If we wish to not let in the sun, we hang curtains. There is no end to our ingenuity in fashioning doors and walls to provide the desired balance of separation and inclusion. The doors to the sanctuary allow us to travel between the protected sacred space inside the walls of the temple and the profane world outside them. Unfortunately, also because we're smart, we don't just build physical walls. We have walls inside our minds, built not with stone, brick, wire, or wood, but of experience, prejudice, ignorance, and pain. The walls serve exactly the same purpose as physical walls do by protecting us from psychic injury, by separating us from the things that would mentally harm us. Undeniably useful, devilishly hard to see and understand. Most of these walls are actually built subconsciously, either when we are small children or as adults, when we are probably not paying attention. Some of these walls also have names. Cold shoulder, a wall that protects us from the potential danger of friendly strangers. Wallflower, a wall that protects us from the potential danger of large crowds. Post-traumatic stress disorder, a wall that protects us from the painful memories of past danger. As with physical walls, these mental walls also separate us. In most cases, mental walls separate us directly from human connection, and we suffer, as the Chinese Imperium suffered, by severing contact with the steppe nomads, that is, by the loss of fresh, enriching relationships with people, and the personal growth, however uncomfortable, that comes with those relationships. Our mental walls are also harder to put indoors, harder to take down. The Berlin Wall came down when it was no longer relevant. Mental walls often survive quite well through irrelevancy and continue to separate us when there's no longer a need to protect. This, in particular, makes an ability to create mental doors essential. Joseph Campbell admonishes us to follow your bliss, and the universe will open doors where there were only walls. Rest assured, he's not talking about physical walls. Ralph Waldo Emerson simply tells us to be an opener of doors. I would further add that we all be creators of doors. Aldous Huxley, in The Doors of Perception, writes more beautifully than I possibly can, quote, "The man who comes back through the door in the wall will never be quite the same as the man who went out. He will be wiser, but less sure, happier, but less self-satisfied, humbler in acknowledging his ignorance, yet better equipped to understand the relationship of words to things, of systemic reasoning to the unfathomable mystery which it tries forever vainly to comprehend." However, As Rumi tells us, it is not even necessary that you go through the door yourself, as long as you keep it open and welcome the guests that come through, no matter who they are. Once again, I thank Alan for creating a mental door for each one of us to travel from Ukraine to our sacred space here. This sermon on walls and doors came to me sitting in Temple Bethel in Durham, North Carolina. The rabbi told us the Jewish injunction to have at least 2 sets of doors between the outside and the sanctuary, so that the congregation will be spiritually prepared for worship by the act of walking through the doors. My first reaction to this was, how cool. Those old prophets and rabbis knew how to get their followers ready for a sermon. My second reaction was, why aren't I ready for a sermon all the time?